Brian Zimmerman of Atrophy. Welcome to 69 Face of Rock. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How about you?
Doing good too. Good to see you again. It's been a while. I'm not sure if you remember me or not, but we did do quite a few interviews back in the day.
You look vaguely familiar, actually.
Yeah. I was that kid who kind of knocked on the bus back in 88, 89 when you were touring with Sacred Reich and asked for an interview. And you guys were looking at me, but I was wearing a Flotsam and Jetsam shirt, and I guess that was good enough for you.
Yep, it probably was.
Yeah.
Well, cool. It's good to
Anyway,
see you're still doing it.
well, some things never go away. Uh,
Yes.
Congratulations on the new album. You truly captured the spirit of Atrophy. No doubt about that.
Wow, thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Um, how did you put this band back together?
Um, it was kind of a miracle and kind of a right place at the right time. COVID just hit. So I'll take you back to 2021. We were off to Europe and COVID-19 hit, and we were 8 days into a 23-day tour, and uh, our president said he was going to shut the borders down, so we came home and we tried to do some writing with the other guys and I was working with, and in pre-production it just didn't sound like Atrophy, and I was introduced to a guy who does live in Tucson about a year before, and he had me do a song on his album called Condemn the Dream. And I heard his writing style and the way he played. Uh, his guitar picking was very reminiscent of Chris Lakin's. And so I talked to him and we started writing together. And the first song we wrote was American Dream. And Craig and Lum from Heathen said, "Hey, man, I'll put a lead on this if you want and send it off to a record label." I said, "Okay, cool." And they wanted to sign me. So here we are.
The album definitely sounds like a natural follow-up to Violent by Nature. How did you get everyone to focus to get such an impressive result?
So I think the way I did that is to keep them out of the writing process, um, and so me and Mark wrote the album. Um, and then we brought in a guitar player to play leads on, which is Nathan Montalvo. The drummer we had worked with before, and we were both very comfortable with him. Um, so I think just the me and Mark speak the same language as far as music goes. Um, I can hear something in one of his songs, and I will rearrange it so it's more like Atrophy, and it just it was just the craziest thing, but it just worked out that way, and it was pretty amazing that this is the end result.
Um, was there ever a chance of bringing any guys from the original band?
Yeah, actually, I asked Tim Kelly if he wanted to play drums on this, and he was playing with two of the old band members, and he said he wanted to stick with what he was doing, and I said, okay. Uh, there's no way Chris would do it. He's a doctor now. Rick says he can't play this stuff anymore. And James was having some health problems, even holding the guitar pick. I
Mhm.
guess he has some kind of neuropathy. So probably not. If if Tim wanted to come back, I'd love to have him. He's a great drummer. Uh, but yeah, so we're just moving on.
Are you still in touch with the old guys at all? I mean, on a friendly basis?
I was until um, about 21, and I haven't spoke to them much at all. I spoke to Tim a couple times here in the last year or so, and we just left it as he's doing his thing and I'm doing mine.
So,
So
you Atrophy members.
Who are they? So Mark Coughlin is the main rhythm guitar player. He lives in Tucson, Arizona. Nathan Montalvo is our lead and rhythm guitar player. He's from Atlanta, Georgia. And I got Josh Gibbs from Malevolent Creation on bass. And we're kind of looking for a drummer at this point. The guy who did the album, he lives in Germany. So trying to get him to do live stuff, probably not going to happen. So yeah, we're scouting a drummer right now.
What response is Asylum getting so far?
Unbelievable reviews. I'm blown away. I mean, I think the worst review we got was a 4 out of 5. Every other one we've gotten is about a 9 out of 10. So that it's not bad. I mean, I can't complain at all.
Um, which aspect of the original Atrophy sound was like the hardest to accomplish?
So it's always been the syncopated guitar playing, the that very rhythmic. Because I started playing guitar in this band, and Chris had something different than a lot of guitar players had. He had a very different style of drill picking, and it's kind of hard to find that in guitar players. And I think that was the hardest thing to replicate. Um, Definitely was. I will say that. Yep.
Funny thing is, I actually looked up Chris today since we're gonna be talking, and he truly did become a doctor.
He did. He's a ear, nose, and throat specialist in Scottsdale, Arizona. Congratulations, Chris.
I know, and I've read some articles where he still plays guitar when he can, and he's doing what he loves.
He does. I think his band is more country oriented, kind of folk. I have not heard them. A couple of friends of mine have went to go see them. Very different stylistically, but yeah, he's still playing.
It's great. Um,
Yeah.
topics are you singing about these days?
Well, a lot of it had to do with um, COVID-19 and what happened psychologically to the country and mental health problems in our country, gun violence, um, the mass shootings that we've been having, and the opioid epidemic. Been writing about that. So, kind of the same thing we had written about before, probably on a more serious note.
And speaking of more serious note, how did all the changes in how we live these days affect you as an artist?
Um, I so I couldn't believe what I was seeing during COVID, especially in America. We had the uprising at the Capitol building, the attempted insurrection. Uh, then we had Antifa and the Black Lives Matter uprising. Just it we had cities that were on fire, and it was just we had never seen anything like this before. So that was the main thing that was like just so crazy. We're coming out of it now. The food shortages that we had. So I think that would be the big difference between now and then.
The cover of the new album clearly kind of relates to the cover of Socialized Hate. What statement do you think it makes?
So the statement, I kind of came up with the concept of uh, the whole. There's an Easter egg in the album cover, and I'll be releasing some art after the album's released that kind of brings all the albums together. So it, the Jester always had represented, the two governments on the first album cover, and on the inside he pulls his face off and he's this evil, um, jester, and I wanted to bring him back because I, first of all, I loved the concept of it, and so I wanted to use him waving people into the asylum, and come on in, and that's kind of where the concept of that came from.
Um, Out of all the songs you did for the new album, which ones do you think stand out to you, or which ones do you plan on playing live?
So the ones we are playing live right now, we're doing Punishment for All, we're doing Seeds of Sorrow, and I want to put High Anxiety on that list too. Um,
My favorite.
but is it really that everybody keeps saying that? It's kind of surprising. That was this, I think, the second to the last song that I wrote, but lyrically, and so I think we'll let the fans decide if if they don't like one song and they like another song, and that's all we hear, play this, play, we're automatically going to bring it into the set list. So,
And now that the album is about to come out, what plans do you have to promote it, to play live, to play tours? What's going on?
so we just did a tour with Violence and a mini tour down in Central America with Hyrax, Violence, and Ex Hoarder. And as soon as we got back, I was trying to book West Coast and East Coast, and I found myself making unfortunately, having to make a drummer change. But we've already have applicants submitting. So if that happens, then I definitely like to do the United States and get over to Europe this year. That would be my plan.
Let's talk about the past for a little bit. Back in what
Sure.
you released Violent by Nature, great record. You were touring, you had a great management, and then you kind of disappeared. What happened?
Grunge. Grunge music happened. It had literally severed off hair metal, thrash metal, all in one swoop. A lot of the fans were going over to the Nirvana type stuff, and the record labels were just dropping everybody because they wanted to put their money into the Seattle sound, and so that happened. And the other thing that happened was Chris left to become a doctor. He was going to school. He got a full scholarship to go to any prestigious college he wanted to. And then I was a father, and I had to grow up and be a dad because we weren't making money off the record at that point, and we didn't have any label support to pay our bills. So it was time just to be a dad and do that.
Generally, how do you look back on those early days of the band?
Oh man, it was actually insane because uh, me and Chris and James had jammed together for like 2.5 summers together, and we knew each other quite well. And we had a discussion one day of, Chris wanted to get real serious about trying to get a label and get in and record and stuff like that. And we said, well, we got to find a double bass drummer. And we found Tim, we found Rick. And I think within 3 months, we were recording in Tucson, and we did a Chemical Dependency demo. We sent that off to every magazine we could find. And within about 6 months, we were signed. And it was, we just got whisked up in all of it.
Definitely. Um, did you do anything musically during your downtime?
Yeah, I've always played guitar and sang, and it wasn't thrash metal. I was doing other stuff. I was in like in a men's choir. I did some a cappella singing, and I just played a lot of guitar and stuff like that. But um, I I guess I never really thought about reviving the band until about 2016. Um, a guy from Facebook said, "Hey, I gotta, if you guys want to get back together, I can get you guys over to the Maryland Death Fest." And that was pretty tantalizing. So, uh, me, Rick, and James, and two new guitar players uh, went through the old stuff, and it got it sounding really good. And we went and did it. And then we just kept getting offers, and we've been to China and all over the place. So it's been pretty amazing.
Hey, which kind of brought me to my next question. Like, even in the back of your head, did you know that one day you're gonna get back to Atrophy or any other band for example?
No, no, I had no aspirations to ever get back in the band. Um, there wasn't any particular reason, but I didn't think we were even relevant in any way, shape, or form. And when the internet took hold and people started sharing all over the world, that kind of proved me wrong. So I'm like, well, maybe people do want to hear more from us, and I think that changed my mind a little bit.
And when you reflect back, how do you look back on those first two albums?
With love, we still play, uh, so many songs from the first album and second album. Um, it was just an amazing time, and I mean, how many people get signed and go do this and get jump on tour buses and go travel around the world? It was just incredible, and I think they still kind of hold up. Uh, at least people tell me they do.
Are those albums still in print?
So in when we got back together, one of the big things that I heard was, "Can you please get the albums re-released again?" And so I had to go through and try to find out who owns the rights and all that stuff. And Massacre Records just bought the rights to reproduce them. I think 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So they are still in print, and they still look and sound just like the original album.
Yeah. When you look back at some of those early tours you did, what was your favorite or some of your favorites?
Of course, I think one of my favorite is going to Europe for the first time and seeing how crazy people were. And one of my favorite things in the history of doing this is we were there when they were taking down the wall from Germany, and we were one of the first bands of our type to ever play in the Eastern Bloc. So when we pulled through the first time, they were still taking down remnants of the wall, and we went over to, I don't know, probably 10 different countries. And on the way back, we came through the same checkpoint, and as far as you could see, there was no remnant of that wall left. There was only light posts where that wall once stood. And that's still, uh, just to see people being freed from that tyranny was amazing. And people were excited, you know. People came to the concert and they were just letting off steam, and it was just an amazing time.
I bet it was. I mean, personally,
Yeah.
forget seeing your first show, I want to say 88 at that little place in Steger, Illinois.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Opening up for Sacred Reich. It was like in the middle of nowhere, but everybody was there and the energy was just beyond belief.
It was like a bonfire. It was just
And then
unbelievable.
what you did with Coroner, those shows were
Yep.
too at Thirsty Whale, for example, I believe you played.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yep.
you day after, and I believe in Aurora one more time.
Yep.
uh,
Nice.
finally, finally, what were some important lessons from the initial run of the band that you can apply to what's happening now?
So I think the biggest thing I learned in the first round was, don't take this for granted. It can be pulled away at any time. due to health reasons, due to COVID-19, due to people not being interested anymore. So I'm savoring this a little bit more than the first time, because when you're young, you're like, oh, this will never end. We're going to be rock stars. We're going to do this. And then you see what happened. And so just being humble and really appreciate the experience this time. I think that's the biggest lesson.
Thank you, Brian, and good luck with the new album.
Well, thank you so much. Did you get a